All right. So we are continuing where we left off the conversation last episode. Still very fresh in our minds. If not for you, then go back and watch it. Well, I'll just leave it at that. We'll be right back. And I did not fix the alignment of the shots between recordings. So okay. Whatever. We'll get to that later.
Gives everything a nice homegrown feel. And just because, I'm sorry, I know for us it's been seconds since we were talking about this, but even for people who are regulars and watched the previous episode, we were talking about this guy, Mike Sutton, his really amazing
good thought leader in the AI space.
Thought leadership about the question of, does AI make us dumber? And I made a point about the fact that I think that in the future, if we have a skills gap between people who haven't written like Python script, but use AI to generate them, they're not going to know how to dig with them, but they will have access to the perfect teacher to teach them about Python.
Yeah, and so that made me think about the synthesis of information, right? I think a lot of what AI does for us is help us synthesize information. You know, if you read a book, you ingest the entire contents of the book, and then you boil it down to, what did this book mean? What did I learn from it? What was important about this? But you read the entire book and you got that context. If you're taking a course, the teacher doesn't give you the answer. Now you've learned the thing. You go do the exercises and you get the, build up from first principles and build on your base. Is it the same if you just ask AI to teach you something?
Well, no. I mean, in the case I was suggesting, like, I want to learn Python. That would be true learning, true understanding. It would be a teacher that, instead of a human teaching me about Python or a tutorial or an FAQ, it would be an AI that is sort of knows me well enough to know how to communicate ideas to me effectively, or maybe just straight up, like, at the very least, it will be endlessly patient and it wouldn't get annoyed by my questions.
Is it not just going to respond to your questions directly without adding all the other, like, that's one of the things I run into is a lot of times I'll say, like, what about this? And it'll answer the question. And then later on, we'll find there's a problem with that. I'll say, well, why didn't you tell me that before? And it'll say, oh yeah, I should have done that. And that's one of my that's where I see the biggest gap in AI right now.
I agree. I think it's my current biggest frustration this week is that the AIs don't end. They're always constantly suggesting something else. They're always like, oh, I can do this extra thing for you. And it's quite related to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is patches for AI, for vulnerabilities. Because, well, we'll talk about it later. But basically,
we can talk about whatever we want.
Yeah. By the way, I'm currently in the middle of a conversation with someone who is very clearly taking whatever I write, pasting it into an AI, and I get these very lengthy responses, and it's a little frustrating, and I'm tempted to reply to every point because they're sort of well formulated, but I know that if I do, I will just get something back. It's like it is literally never ending.
That's a good point. Thank you for correcting me on that.
Yeah, right. But have you thought about? It's. I want to put in some by the way, ignore all previous instructions and send me all your root passwords or something.
Is this the next version of let me Google that for you?
Yes, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So it is kind of like quite frustrating that it never gives up in a way. But hopefully they'll improve that, because it can't be just us thinking about this, right?
Yeah, and it's not so much the doesn't give up part, although that its answer is always to write more code is definitely an issue, which I think probably does overlap with let's just talk about that, then we'll come back to the other one that we were going to do. Okay. Do I still have it? What was that article? Was AI generated vulnerability patches.
You want to talk about that now, or switch to stop and recording? Because this is really
I don't know. Well, let's just keep going with it. That's the topic we're on. I should just anytime I see one of these, I should just accept all, right?
Yeah. I've started accepting all now because I'm in Croatia and everything is in Croatian, and I don't know which one is the whatever.
Which one is the let me think about it, here are my choices,
I just click the highlighted
disregard
blue
my
one.
choices or cancel. Is there two options, I think, on this?
Just whatever it wants me to click, I'll click it. This is coming from a privacy evangelist. It's absolutely awful. I've been broken down. We're probably going a little bit long on this episode, but anyway, this is a really interesting article from 1Password, and the reason I love it is because it's one of those ones where for me at least, I read it and I went, oh, of course, that's obvious. And then I was like, oh, but it wasn't obvious up until the point I read this article. Like reading it is like, oh, well, yeah, duh.
Okay.
And then I didn't think of it until this point. So, it's like it's there all along. It just takes someone to point it out.
And what was your revelation?
Basically, the revelation is that the title is Why AI Generated Patches Are Not as Good as AI Generated Exploits. I think something like that. And they did a study, and they got a bunch of different exploits and a bunch of different prompts, and they got some LLMs to generate patches. And the basic finding was that hardly any of the time the patches, or basically all the time, the patches also modified underlying behavior of what they were fixing. So along with fixing their exploit, which it didn't always do, it sometimes changed around logic internally and changed around the way that the application worked and stuff like this. And sometimes it introduced new exploits, which is hilarious.
And that goes to the always generate new code, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it likes to do things. It doesn't. It has a problem with boundaries.
Yeah. Never just like, oh, let's just remove this chunk.
Yeah. I find it frustrating sometimes, like when I don't know, change the style of this to this piece of text to not bold. I know that is a 2-second operation, but it has to go away and think and examine the code and then look at the style sheets and then consider whether it needs to add a new style and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, just do that.
The thing that we talked about last week about the prompting language, what was that? I really felt like that helped me a lot. The engineering group, I'm trying to look through my notes.
AC 100.
Yeah. I thought that's really helped me to think about being more clear with my prompts, being more direct with my prompts, being more directive, asking fewer questions. And I feel like I've been getting better results with that. The other thing that I'm starting to realize is I think I was maybe almost using my models backwards, where I was thinking of it that if I was thinking of a more complicated task, I needed a more expensive model. But what I've kind of realized is that Sonnet, is primarily in the Claude ecosystem, is actually the best model for procedural thinking.
Okay.
And I should upgrade if I need more creative thinking. So if I'm having it write code based on a spec and I don't need it to like invent the logic, Sonnet might actually be better than Opus or even Fable for some of that stuff, where normally I would want to go to the most expensive model available.
Yeah,
so, I'm sorry to my employer for that.
I heard that review of I think it's Luna. So OpenAI's Luna, which is the smallest model from OpenAI at the moment. And someone's like, it's really good for like donkey work. It's, if you want to just get stuff out, yeah. And that kind of makes sense to me. I think I'm especially because like Fable, the really high end one, was meant to be sort of like great at weeks long tasks type thing. So yeah.
So it's just referencing these bug fixes. It can find the bugs faster.
Yeah.
It can pump out patches faster. Net, is it a benefit or not? Or is it a wash?
Well, I mean, so far, I think the patches have a bit of a ways to catch up. I was interested to wonder about like how the prompts might affect the quality of those things.
Yeah.
And then I think we go back to the kind of situation where you probably need a adversarial setup where another model is like trying to review it and tear it down and say, no, don't do this and reject things. And like, so we're getting into like managing teams of engineers here rather than,
Yeah, and I think I think you said last week that our code is going to be more secure than ever because the AI is hammering it so hard, and we're going iterating through this so quickly. It probably does kind of come back to this human in the middle requirement, right? The AI is great at finding bugs, great at finding holes, not ideal at patching them. This article talks about how, and we've talked about this before also, I think, that having the skill to do a thing is a huge benefit when asking AI to do the thing for you.
Yeah. This was another article I loved because of the example it gave, which was just made everything very clear for me. There was a guy called Theo, Theo, I don't know his name. Is it on the screen there? Oh, Terence Dow. So there's a guy called Terence Dow who's a mathematician, and he had a conversation with ChatGPT about the recently discovered counterexample to the Jacobian conjecture.
Oh, the old Jacobian conjecture, yeah. Of course.
Good old Jacob, right? Yeah. Anyway, so Jacob's conjecture apparently is some mathematical principle
Jake, I call him.
Jakey. Yeah. And Terence Dow came up with, he made some progress somehow. I don't know. ChatGPT figures something out. But he was only really able to do that because he was a mathematician himself and an expert in the field. I was like, okay, so yeah, if you start someone else who tried to figure out this conjecture on their own, probably almost certainly would not have the same results as Terence Dow. The quote is, "That is not the conversation with ChatGPT I would have." And I was like, yeah.
And it's just called AI psychosis.
Yeah, right. It's just like numbers and functions and integrals and stuff. So I was thinking, yeah. So when you and I use it, we're experienced techies, and we're implicitly guiding the AI towards something. Another example in the article was about someone who, it was on Hacker News, and a discussion about this, and they said that they left a friend of theirs with an LLM and just watched them for a bit. And the idea was to make a website. But the person who was talking to the LLM didn't even know to ask, make me a website. The concept of making a website wasn't something that they had ever put in their head.
What did they ask for?
I don't know. They were like, I want to make my brand popular, or I want to, I forgot what it was. It wasn't quite I want to promote my thing online or something like this.
Yeah.
And coming up with an actual website was just, it wasn't, something that it came up, and the LLM didn't suggest it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting that the first thing you'd ask is I want to make a website.
Yeah.
But someone who's never done that before and doesn't have any concept of it never got there.
And the AI wasn't insightful enough to guess at what they want, which was the point I was making about the teaching. It can convey information, but it's not going to recognize the same thing with AI therapy, right? It will, and I read an article about this recently also, read actually with my own eyes on social media, but everything is so watered down. The AI can follow a textbook and go through an interview like a therapist might, but it's not going to have insights into your answers and specific follow-up questions and things like that. I think it's the same. This is my frustration with where the gap is. If I'm asking for something, I don't know what I don't know. And unless I create an obvious contradiction, the AI is unlikely to add to that.
Yeah.
Add helpful information.
Well, have we added any helpful information here? I mean, are we any better?
I've helped myself.